in this case, I'll show you how the three biggest mistakes SaaS startups make with their website. So the ideal scenario would be creating predictable revenue with a website. But what does that mean? Basically, predictable revenue with a website would mean if you send more traffic to your website, you'll get more customers, and eventually you'll get more revenue, which is the ideal case here. But I'll show you the three mistakes why most startups never get here. So in my experience, 80% of the problems only come from these three mistakes. That's why I'm only showing you these three huge mistakes, and so you don't make the same mistakes. So mistake number one is thinking traffic is all the same, which is really not the case, and you should treat different traffic with a different treatment. So you'll have two categories to classify traffic. One would be classifying by temperature, and the second would be classifying by control. So traffic temperature, you'll really have three types for this category. One is cold traffic, and these are people that don't really know you, they don't know your offer, and they don't really know your product, the problem you're fixing. So as you might guess, this takes a lot more work to convince, and you'll really need like a really good strategy and really good pages to convince people to buy from you or even try your product. This is the case for startups that are getting closer to their first 1,000 customers, because they're really not that popular, and it's still very hard to convert people. So the second option is warm traffic. And these are people that either know your company or know the problem you're solving. So they are more educated on what they are getting out of your product and what problem is getting fixed. Most likely, your first customers or your next few customers come in this category, and that's why many customers don't really convert, and the only customers you're getting are probably people from warm traffic. Then you have hot traffic, which is probably super rare, and this is where people know everything about your company, what you do, what you offer, and they're really just ready to buy. They just need a sign up form. And as I'll show you later, this is the case for many bigger startups, and this is really far from companies that are smaller. So this is what I was talking about the hot traffic. Is most people look at bigger company websites for reference and think they're really good at converting and stuff like that, but most likely that's really not the case, because they don't have to bother showing what problems they're fixing, why they're the best solution, because people already know about them and what they do, or they've been recommended from like a trusted source. So one big example of this is Slack. They have a beautiful website, but they don't really explain what they do and why they're useful, because these messaging apps have been around for a few years. So this is Slack's website in 2018, and you can see the difference between the 2018 one and the current in the website from 2014 when they were actually growing a little bit more. So you can see how they have much more effort, take much more effort into explaining what they're doing and the benefits of being less busy, and you actually could take a tour of the entire product. They really have put much more effort into explaining, because no one really knew about them, or at least they weren't aware of this thing. So that's how they would get customers. Otherwise, with the website they have in 2018, there's no way people would actually pay for this or even try it out. This is like another page from Slack's website in 2014, where this was a separate page where they really explain why this would be the future for the 21st century and how every other thing in email is outdated and stuff. They even explain particular features, which is something that they don't really do anymore. The other way to categorize traffic is by control, and it could be traffic you don't really control because you don't really know where it's coming from or what's the intent of people that come into the website, and very rarely you will convert some people like this. And this could be from press releases or random visitors that you don't even know how they got there. The second type is traffic you control, because you can actually set what type of demographic you're going for, and if that's your ideal customer, then you can really control the people that go to your website, and you can really explain the right things for them, which is way more likely to convert. You might have 20,000 or 10,000 unique visits, but if you don't really control the type of traffic or divide them into different groups, then there's no way you can convert a good chunk of them. A few examples of traffic you control would be ads, SEO, and content marketing. And these are only the case if they're done properly. If you don't really have a good strategy for your ideal customer, then you won't get these right, and you still won't get the right people in the door. The best traffic, which could be somewhat equivalent to the hot traffic classification I've explained before, which would be traffic you own, which is obviously much more aware of what you do and what you offer, but they still might not be aware exactly how you can provide value for their particular case. But they're very close to converting if you keep following up and explaining the right things. Examples for this would be email lists, followers or subscribers for YouTube channels or social media accounts, and returning visitors that somehow want to go back to your website in case you have a blog or some useful resources. So as you can see, because you have different sources, different types of traffic, you'll need to treat them very differently. So this is converting is not only magically turning people from a simple visitor into a customer, but actually driving the right people into the website in the first place. So essentially, this is driving the right people to the right solution. If you don't really consider this, you'll need to have a ton of traffic to compensate for the stupid low conversion rates, which is very hard to get even with paid ads, because with paid ads, if you don't have a broad enough demographic, then you'll be reaching the same people, which doesn't work forever. And if you don't have a specific enough demographic, then it's not clear what problem you're solving, what value you bring to the table. And the second problem is you won't be driving the right people to the website. If you don't drive the right people to the website, as I said before, you can't really do anything with a landing page, because it's not going to do all the heavy lifting if you don't drive people that would be interested in your product. So mistake number 2 is your conversion rate sucks. Even if you drive the right people to your website, you'll have to make sure you convert as much people as you want, because traffic is something that takes a lot of time, effort, and money to grow. And if you don't really have a way to convert them, you'll never get to predictable revenue with your website. So these are the 4 big reasons why your conversion rates are not good right now. And even if only one of these things fails, you will have a huge bottleneck in how your website converts. So number 1 is not answering objections. Like I mentioned in the previous step, if you don't answer the questions people need to have before they're ready to buy, and you don't identify them and prioritize them properly, people won't be eager to convert or to even try the product. One thing that is really not that obvious is if you're using the right call to actions, because what most SaaS startups tend to do is they just use a free trial, and they don't really have an idea why, because most startups do that, and they don't really get the research done to really figure out what would be the best case for this. So you could, the ideal case would be scheduling a demo if your product is really complicated. It could be a free trial, or even a money back guarantee where you can pay for it and try it out for a few days. It really depends, and you'll have to do your research for that. So number three is not speaking the same language. This is a huge problem for technical founders, or or people or companies that don't really have a good marketing team that could really communicate to those customers, or a very small one. Essentially, if you don't communicate in the same language your customers talk, then they won't understand what you're offering. This is hard to understand, so let me just give you an example. So I see a lot of startups targeting small businesses. The thing is most small businesses or medium businesses are not really that technical, so they most likely they won't understand um, how exactly it works and how you can set it up, or even or maybe have some misconceptions on how easy it is to use and stuff like that. So if you're coming in with very technical words and explaining you should have your product on Google, or you should have this website, or you can do this automatically, and those customers won't really be aware that that's possible, so they'll have to you'll need like a bunch more work to convince them properly. And also a huge one is, if you don't really explain in terms of the problem you're fixing, then there's no way you can show that those tech solutions would be the way to fix those problems. So you should start with problem first and speak the same language, and use the same terms your ideal customer is using to describe the solution they would want. So the first problem, which is a huge one, is not providing alternatives. And this means if you have a call to action for a free trial, what other alternatives do you have to keep following up with your customers, and really have another chance of converting them long term? I'll speak about this in depth, and show you like a formula for a page that converts in step number 3. That's all that I will be explaining in step number 3. But I'll move on to the third mistake from this video. So the third mistake would be you don't have a scalable and predictable process for your customer acquisition, which basically means how you got your first customers is not how you'll get your next 1,000, because most likely the things you did are not really scalable, which is a good thing to really find about the problems your customers have, and really build a relationship with them. But in the future, you'll have to make something that is lower touch and that it's very replicable. So most likely you got your first customers using your network, which is much easier because they already know you. You got on Facebook groups and communities. You outreach or did customer interviews. It takes a bunch of time, and it's hard to scale without a good process and a big sales team. Or product launches that you'll only have to do like a year at most. And you can see that this is not scalable because you can only have so many Facebook groups. Your network is only so big. There's no way where you can turn this into thousands of people. So what successful startups have mastered is actually turning cold traffic, as I explained before, which is the hardest one to convert, into people that would be ready to buy their products. So where can you take thousands and thousands of people and make them go through the same process, divide them into different groups and actually target them, pitch them the ideal thing they need to hear, and end up converting a good chunk of them. So the only way where you can really do this at scale will probably be your website, if done right, obviously. So we're almost there. I will explain you how exactly you can do this with your website, and I'll start with explaining the formula for so that you can use to make every page easier to convert, and you can do it very predictably and repeatably. Then in step 4, I'll show you that a landing page is really not enough, because I see a lot of companies relying on the landing page and not having a good funnel after that. Even if you got a good landing page, is just throwing the problems to the next step of the funnel, which you don't really, you end up not getting, not acquiring more customers anyways. In step number 5, which is a huge one, is I'll be breaking down a funnel that shows you what you can do with traffic that you control, traffic you don't control, traffic you own, how to convert cold traffic, and like simple funnels for each of them that you can actually make your website follow that and convert much better. So let's review what we talked about in this step. One, we talk about the 3 types of traffic temperature: cold, warm, and hot. The 3 types of traffic control: traffic you don't control, traffic you control, and traffic you own. And the 4 components of a conversion-driven page: answering objections, having the right call to actions, speaking the right language, and providing alternatives to your main call to action. And if any of this fails, you'll have a huge bottleneck in your business. It could be failing of not understanding the right temperature of the traffic, the right control you have, having a landing page that converts the right people into actual customers. Like I said, if any of these fails, the whole system doesn't work as well. And the way you acquired your first 10 customers, which is probably not scalable, won't get you to your next 1,000. So up next, I will show you a simple formula where you can create a conversion-driven page every single time. And this is what I use to design every page I do for my clients. And I'll be breaking down one landing page I did designed to capture leads. And this would be the like a preview of the page we'll be breaking down in the next episode. So again, thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, just feel free to email me, and looking forward to explaining you the next step. Cheers.